Get started. Everybody is on mute. If you could please hold your questions till the end, and we are recording this meeting. So thank you everyone for coming to our community input meeting. We're going to go through our slide deck, and then, like I said, we'll have questions at the end. I'm not controlling the slide deck, so someone
can you move to the next slide?
The next screen. Thank you. Okay, so here's our agenda. We're going to do introductions, talk about our planning process, our current projects, overview of the park district needs, some of our proposed solutions, the timing of projects, the benefits for residents, the financing and next steps, and then we'll take questions. Next slide. This is the Park District's vision. We aspire to be the most innovative, customer-driven, and financially and environmentally sustainable park district for current and future generations. We have 5 commissioners on our board. I'm Stephanie Boran, the vice president. Our president is Carol Spain. Michael Covey is our treasurer. We also have Bart Schneider and Jordan Spector as commissioners. Jordan is also on the call. If any other commissioners join the call, they will also be on mute because we can only have 2 commissioners present at a time speaking. So Jordan will speak later as well. And we are all volunteers. We're elected for 4-year terms. I'm on my 7th of my 8-year term, and Jordan is on his 2nd year, I believe. And then if the staff can also introduce themselves, who's on the call. We have Lisa Shepard, who's our executive director, Bobby Collins, Kyle Coos. I have to see who else on the call here because everything just went off my screen. John Kutera, and Aaron is also on the call. If you guys want to say your positions or.
Sure. I'm Lisa Shepard, the executive director. I've been at Glencoe for the last 11 years. Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby Collins, Deputy Director and Director of Recreation and Facilities, just past the 8-year mark.
John
Cutrera, Director of Finance and HR. I've been with the district around 3 years now.
Kyle
Coast, Director of Parks and Planning, been with the district just a little bit over 2 years now.
And Aaron.
I'm hiding. Erin Clausen, I'm the Superintendent of Marketing Communications, and I've been here for 11 years.
Okay, the Glencoe Park District is an independent taxing body, and we operate separately from the village. And I know that a lot of times we get confused with who owns what. We do not operate the golf course or the forest preserve land, even though we are in charge of the parks and recreation and facilities. That is one facility that we do not operate. 75% of the property tax dollars are allocated to the school district and to the village. So the park district receives 7 cents of every property tax dollar that's allocated to the district. This is also always a good illustration we show. Lisa Shepard is going to take over the next couple of slides.
Excellent. Thank you all for coming. 88% of Illinois residents agree that parks and open space help to improve local property values. Every time we invest in recreation opportunities in Glencoe community, we improve the quality of life for our residents and their property values. In fact, according to an independent study from the Illinois Association of Park Districts, 88% of Illinois residents agree that parks and open space help improve their local property tax values. So maintaining our programs and facilities and parks become a great asset to the community. We use community input data and experts to plan our investments. Every 10 years, we undergo a comprehensive planning process with an independent consultant. This planning process includes community focus groups, stakeholder interviews, comprehensive community survey, trend analysis, and study of current assets and programs. The completed plan is then utilized to fuel our capital projects, goals, and initiatives for 10 years. We also update the document annually to keep up with current trends or changes in community sentiment. Our most recent comprehensive planning process began last year, and we're about to conclude it. It's a 12-month study of everything in the Park District, including a comprehensive evaluation of the status of our parks, playgrounds, facilities, and other items. Survey questions like the one on this slide guide the board when they make infrastructure decisions. So one of our community survey questions was below our potential initiatives that the Glencoe Park District might consider. Knowing that these could mean higher user fees or property taxes, please indicate whether you oppose or support each. And as you can see, there was overall support for beachfront improvements, investing in the district facilities to support our parks, improving and replacing playgrounds, improving athletic fields, moving to electric maintenance vehicles, and additional space for childcare. And then lower on the thing was new recreation facilities. So this referendum initiative is strictly looking at what we currently have and how we can replace or improve those infrastructure items. Okay. So we've done a lot in the last 10 years. Was our last comprehensive survey. And if you can see by the list, and we're not going to bore you by going through all that, we've done a lot. We use this 10-year condition assessment to look at where the life span is for our assets. So it tracks the useful life of all major Park District amenities and estimated cost of replacements. This includes playgrounds, athletic fields, sports court facilities, lakefront beach operations. And as you can see, all projects proposed for the bond have been identified at the end of their useful life. We are not recommending adding anything new, as I said before. We are recommending replacing things that are at the end of their useful life. Just like your home, things need to be replaced every 25 years. If things can't be replaced, they need to be removed. All right. I'm going to turn this over to John, our finance director.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. So in addition to the need outlined by Lisa on the previous slide, the timing of the final payment for our previous bond referendum presents us the opportunity to issue new referendum bonds without an increase to the tax rate. Glencoe voters approved a $13.8 million bond issuance to renovate the recreation amenities here at the Takeoff Center back in 2005. And this debt will be paid off in December of 2025. The previous referendum bonds were set up to fund a little over $1 million in debt service annually. The potential new bonds would be set up to fund that same dollar amount, slightly over $1 million in debt service annually. Should voters decide to vote no, a homeowner with a $1 million home would see their tax bill decrease approximately $261 annually, which equates to less than 1% of the total property tax bill. The difference here in the issuance amounts of $13.8 million in 2005 and $14.7 million on the potential new debt is really just a product of the interest rate environment at the time of issuance. So over the past 10 years, we have been able to fund significant capital projects responsibly through the use of our fund balance, grants, and donations. As we project out for our fiscal year 24 and 25 budget, we're anticipating having slightly under $6 million in our capital projects fund. The new referendum bonds would be combined with that to fund approximately $22 million in capital projects that have been identified in the conditions assessment. The district would still also actively be pursuing any possible grants or donations to fund what existing fund balance and the referendum bonds would not. And again, given this approach, it would allow us to address these projects without increasing the total tax rate or the current $1.03 million in debt service that's being allocated to fund the existing referendum bonds. With that, I'll turn it over to Bobby.
Good evening, everybody. So this past winter, the district completed a statistically valid community survey as part of our comprehensive plan. And this was to have a better understanding of the preferences of our community towards our public infrastructure. what the survey told us was there was a really strong support for taking care of our existing infrastructure. 61% of residents were advocating for this focus, while 39% of respondents to the survey showed a preference to introducing new facilities and activities. But I think what shone through was the community recognized while investing in new amenities has potential to enhance services and infrastructure, it also involves significant costs and implications for taxpayers, like ongoing maintenance, investment initial to install, staffing needs, operational expenses, and potentially the risk of interrupted services to existing infrastructure that taxpayer dollars will not be going to as they're going to new infrastructure. If we were to issue a new bond for these projects we're talking about tonight, about 50% of the proceeds will be earmarked towards the parks facility. About 35% will be going towards enhancements and replacements at the beach and boating beach amenities. And then the remaining will be split with athletic field improvements and greenhouse replacements. I'm going to introduce Kyle next.
Thank you, Bobby. Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit about projects that are under consideration. So we would look to tackle with these bond proceeds, different items that are on our heat sheets or the 10-year capital assessment that Lisa was going over earlier. The biggest thing I think we want to stress is that these are preliminary designs and that all these projects will go through project-specific community input sessions to help guide final design. The common thread you're going to see throughout the following is to take care of what we have in our current inventory and update and renovate those items and not adding more or new amenities. So we'll start on the swimming beach side at the Glencoe Beach. So the improvements that are needed include updates to the stairs, retaining walls, and ramps. This is critical infrastructure that ensures access to the beach. We would also be looking to replace the boardwalk, sun shelters, as well as the trellis roof. All of these are nearing 30 years old. The boardwalk has rotting joists and is continually heaving, collapsing, and buckling. And the warping compromises the ADA accessible route to the beach amenities. We would also look to do interior updates to the Saffron Beach House, which last occurred 30 years ago. There would be improvements to the lockers and boat storage, making them more efficient and accommodating more kayaks and paddle boards in the future. So you can see here we have our first conceptual rendering. This is showing a new boardwalk and new sun shelter. This will be replacing the current versions. Other updates that are not shown include making improvements to the staircase, retaining walls, and ramps, while maintaining the historic charm and meeting the ADA requirements. Again, what we want to emphasize here is that we are not looking to make wholesale changes to the size or the scope of these amenities, but rather to replace and renovate them in a way that really the community can recognize from the past and enjoy for decades into the future. We are not looking to increase the number of or the size of the shelters, and the details and specifics for these amenities would be fleshed out through community input meetings and board discussions. Now we'll shift over to the Glencoe Beach Playground. So when it comes to the beach playground, there are really several items for consideration. First and foremost, at 12 years old, the structures themselves are approaching the end of their useful lives. Typically, we would assign a 20-year life expectancy to a playground, but certain factors such as heavy use, exposure to elements like sand, and a high-profile location can speed up that replacement interval. Due to these factors, the beach playground was assigned a 15-year useful life. The dinghy, which we all know is a crowd pleaser down at the beach, would be something we'd be looking to reuse if possible or replace with something very similar. The water tables have worn parts and plumbing fixtures that do need to be updated and replaced. And one common comment that we have received is a general lack of shade above these play features. So that is also something we'd be looking to incorporate. So moving on to rendering number 2, which is highlighting the playground and spray features. Again, wanted to highlight that the renovations for consideration is really consolidating and relocating the existing footprint, moving it a little bit further to the south. This would open up sightlines for the lifeguards from the beach house out to the water's edge and would also create a longer continuous stretch of beach to the north. This conceptual rendering shows an ADA accessible playground with shade provided. It also retains, if possible, features like the beloved dinghy. Again, just want to reiterate that, specific design details, specific play elements within the playground, and things like that would certainly be fleshed out after project-specific community input meetings and board discussion. But at a high level, again, we're not looking to massively expand the footprint or add any additional items, really rather just to replace what we have in a way that makes the space more functional and aesthetically pleasing. Shifting over to the boating beach side, again, want to focus on taking care of what we have. We'd be looking to update, replacing the amenities that are aging out. The storage lockers are beginning to rot and fail and need to be replaced. This would be done so in a way that would be more efficient and support additional future kayaks and paddle boards. The siding on the building needs to be replaced and the bathrooms need a minor facelift. The concrete work and the deck around the building are also beginning to show their age and will soon be in need of replacement. I just want to start off with this rendering by stating that we purposely pulled out the large shade tree and the boats on the beach just for the purposes of showing this specific rendering. We would certainly look to keep that shade tree in place, and certainly during the boating season, the sand spots would still remain for boat storage. But as you can see, a nice new exterior look to the building, a replaced deck and concrete work around the building with just a slight footprint expansion to accommodate kind of growing camps and programming, as well as additional boaters, kayakers, and paddle boarders. Shifting over to TAKEIF here, there's really two major elements to discuss. First, on the ball field side, the lighting infrastructure needs to be replaced. The wooden poles, electrical runs, and distribution panels are nearly 45 years old and have many deficiencies that need to be addressed by way of replacement. The backstops and dugouts need to be replaced and redesigned to provide adequate protection to adjacent peoples and properties. Secondly, we have the parks facility. This is in dire need of replacement and renovation. The current parks facility is a collection of buildings that range in age from 20 years old to up to 90 years old. Really, the layout and functionality of these buildings at this point is not aligned with the demands of a modern park district. The buildings also do not meet modern electrical, plumbing, and life safety codes, and could never support a shift to electric vehicles and equipment in their current configurations. So as you can see in the conceptual rendering for TAKEIF, we've gone with a modern but modest maintenance facility with a consolidated footprint and the possibility of the district's first major solar energy implementation. It also has an expanded parking lot with the district's first ever EV charging stations. On the ball field side, we're keeping the same footprint as it currently has. The beloved stone bleachers would remain in place, and the backstop and dugout designs would be meant to modernize the space while complementing the historic charm. And finally, we have the greenhouses. This amenity is reaching the end of its useful life as well and needs to be replaced. With the way in which the greenhouses are used by our active adults and community partners, really finding a good long-term location and setup is what is front and center here. The greenhouses are currently located behind the parks facility, which we have made work, but with the need for replacement forthcoming and the parks facility as a whole being looked at, an opportunity to change location is being recommended and considered. So in this conceptual rendering, we are showcasing a new greenhouse relocated at Shelton Park. The exact location is still to be determined, but we have had some initial conversations with the Village of Glencoe about potentially relocating to the gravel lot just south of Community Gardens, just east of the train tracks, in between the train tracks and the Green Bay Trail. This site is really ideal in our mind, given its proximity to the Green Bay Trail and the Glencoe Community Gardens, two of our biggest users of this amenity from community partner standpoint. This location is also preferred, again, given that it's would not be located behind the parks facility, where there's the opportunity for heavy equipment, frequent traffic, and other logistical challenges. This relocated, updated greenhouse can help meet the demand for more adult programming and potentially more educational opportunities in the future. With that, I think kicking it back to Lisa.
You're muted, Lisa.
Sorry about that. So you might say, oh my gosh, my project's not on there. We didn't exclusively list all the projects that the park districts are considering in the next year or two. And then there's obviously more projects on our heat sheets that would have to replace, but we kind of emphasize the priority ones that are coming towards the end of useful life. So as you see here is an example of West Park. This is a park that is in need of ADA improvements, baseball improvements, potential walking track that we plan to submit for an OSLAG grant in the next couple of months. And this is has been on our master plan list for improvement for quite a while. In addition, some projects we're working on this year includes the tennis courts at Watts Park and Central Park, as well as some of the ball field infrastructure at Watts. We also budgeted to replace Shelton racquet courts and the West Park racquet courts next year. So there are other projects that we're working on so the list is not all inclusive. Throw it back over to Stephanie.
This is kind of our timeline. So from May until June, we're holding public information meetings online and in person. And then the board will review all the feedback in June. And then in July, we'll adopt the ballot resolution. And then in November with the election, that's when our bond question will be on the ballot. And then this is some of the benefits, and many of these things were discussed. So, protecting what we have, expanded and improved programming, ADA accessibility, maintaining our current debt service rate, so taxes will not go down, but they will not go up, and protecting our infrastructure, and then expanding the number of months that certain amenities can be enjoyed. Any questions?
Okay, we're going to open up. If you would like to ask a question, if you could go down to your bottom panel, they have little handprint there. If you could just wave it, and then we will call you and unmute you so that we can make sure everybody has a chance to speak tonight. So please just raise your hand. There's a little button that says raise your hand. It's the reactions button on the bottom of your page. No questions? We did such a good job. We have no questions. Up, Eileen. Erin, can you unmute Eileen, please? I don't know if I can do that. Nope. Erin, can you unmute?
Yeah, no, it came through finally. I'm unmuted. I have a question about the boardwalk on the beach. I like everything that you're saying, and can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I like everything you're saying. The projects look really good, and I just simply have a question about the boardwalk on the beach. In the past, the boardwalk was made with a material called Trex, which gave all kinds of problems. I'm just wondering if you guys are thinking about doing something differently this time.
Yes, we are. So Kyle, I'm going to throw that one to you.
So again, so would kind of preface everything with, final design decisions would come after, project specific community input. We would be looking for a material that would have a long lifespan with very little maintenance. One thing that we've discussed as a potential thing to roll out to the public as an option and to the board is another stamped concrete. We found to be very successful on the pier, and in certain applications, we think it potentially makes sense. So a potential option would be a nice stamped concrete to kind of replace that Trex material. And really the substrate, like I referenced earlier, the rotting joist is really what we want to avoid. We want to put something in that'll be there for 25, 30, 40 years with minimal maintenance. And look nice, of course.
Is anything else, Eileen?
Oh, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Erin, can you unmute Jenna?
I did ask, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
great.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Jenna.
everyone. Thanks for organizing this and all the hard work on the back end so far. In terms of this, how the projects would actually be worked on? Like, I know I saw the timeline on like collecting feedback and the referendum and everything, but like, would you do all of these projects at once, or like, you know, based on the feedback from the referendum, then you decide like how many of the projects are actually fiscally possible? Like, how does that work? How do you weight the value of each project?
That's a great question. So we would go off our heat sheets that we referenced to earlier, the projects that are closer to the end of the useful life.
Mhm.
We would also, some take considerably more planning than others. So we have not begun detail planning of any of these projects until
Okay.
the referendum is going to pass. So we have not done detailed. If and when the referendum passes, then we would start in the design phase of all these, doing community
Okay.
input meetings and such. So things like the maintenance parks area would take considerably more planning, and maybe
Mhm.
there's some of the smaller ones that we would do first. But the projects that we have earmarked and showed you, we are estimating that we'll be able to fund those. And so
Okay.
our timeline would be within 4 years.
Okay. Within 4 years. That's cool. Yeah, that was helpful that you shared that, because I was even thinking about like, obviously they're just renderings, but even on like the beach playground as an example, I was like, I can't tell if that looks like it's under almost like a turf area, or if that would still be like beach. And one of the things I feel like families love so much about the park on the beach is that you still feel like you're actually on the beach. And like when kids fall down, they're like falling on the sand. And so like, I guess once you get to the design stage of it, how open to you know, citizen feedback are you in the design stage part of
Oh,
it?
yes, we value all of our resident feedback. So what we do is when we open up those design processes, we bring in our architects and we talk through the project, what we want. And I really could turn this over to Kyle because he knows our whole process. But we open up the design concepts, what we'd be using for safety surface. We would talk about why certain safety surfaces are used over others. So we would not only educate, but we would look for input on those. So yes,
Okay.
those renderings are very, very vague on purpose, because we know there's a lot of community input on that project alone.
Hence probably part of the reason why you need at least a 4-year
Yes,
lead time.
exactly. Yes, it
Okay.
takes it, just for example, the park up on the bluff, that small little playground, with the
Yeah.
planning and input, we had at least 4 community input meetings on that alone, and then board input also. So that took about a year to design and build. So something even as small as that, we take our time to make sure we get it done right the first time.
That's impressive though, that was still all done in a year.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I ask just one more question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
The greenhouse portion, can you just help re-clarify like what the driving concern was for needing to kind of revamp the greenhouse? Like, I mean, I've been past it, but I'm not familiar with what the main driving issue behind it is.
Oh, absolutely. So we have a greenhouse that's actively used behind the parks yard. Is
Mhm.
used by residents of Glencoe who volunteer in a variety of different community groups. So there's the Friends of Green Bay Trail, the community
Mhm.
garden, Glencoe Garden Club, all use that greenhouse. In our survey, we also found that there was a need for more adult activities within our park system, and this is an example of one of those. So we don't always have to provide a program, even though we would use this greenhouse for different programs also, for gardening and such, and we partner with our community groups on those. This is a great amenity to meet the recreation needs for a lot of active adults in the community. And I see someone says, is the amenity will be open over the winter? Yes, it would be. Yes.
And like right now, it's only used seasonally, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, cool, thank you.
Very good questions. Any other questions? I'm gonna go down here to the chats to see if there's anything there. Great idea for greenhouse. Thanks, Cam. There's greenhouse open in the winter. That is our plan. If there's a need. And that's all that's in the chat.
I think Andre has a question then too.
Okay, Andre?
Yeah, so I see a number of people on the chat who I know. And so I'm not speaking for the park district. I'm speaking just for myself because I am not don't have any official position. But I was wondering, any kind of referendum requires people to spread the word in the community. And to the extent that any of you want to be part of that effort, please reach out to me and let me know, either however you'd like to do it. My email is lermanaj@comcast.net. That's going to be pretty important to make sure that this gets over the finish line. So there, I just said it. This was not an official Park District message. This was just a citizen message. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. It is correct. Our job at the Park District is to make sure everybody's informed of what the referendum is. So it's very transparent, but not to endorse it either way. But thank you for that offer.
I'll just say that because there's an opportunity, but that's not part of your presentation. That's just one person speaking.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. If you have any questions as the months roll on up into November, you can always reach out to any of our commissioners, myself or any of the team that's here. Will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. We also have a few more community input meetings before the board officially votes on this in July. So if you have any questions, you can come to those also. So we really appreciate your time and taking time of your night to learn more about the referendum and the Park District. Okay, hearing no more questions, we'll conclude the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.